My name's Daniel Reed. I'm 43 years old, and in a town where everyone knows your business before you do, secrets are currency, and betrayal is public entertainment. I used to believe small-town life meant safety. Familiar faces, slow Sundays, people waving as they passed your porch. What I didn't realize was that those same people would later whisper about me at the diner, the man who lost everything because he trusted his best friend. That friend was Mason Clarke. We grew up together in the same town, Maple Hollow, population barely 6,000. We were the Golden Boys, as our high school coach called us. Mason was the loud one, charming, always with a joke. I was quieter, more grounded. Together, we started a small construction business right after graduation, Reed and Clarke Renovations. For 15 years, we built half the town, from houses and offices to the new community center. Our company wasn't big, but it was honest work. I handled operations. Mason handled clients. We split everything 50-50. I thought of him like a brother. He was best man at my wedding, godfather to my daughter, Ellie. We spent Christmases together, Sunday barbecues, shared every high and low. And then he stole it all. It started with small things, invoices that didn't add up, delayed payments, missing receipts. Mason always had explanations. Clients late, bank error, accountant's fault. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Then one night I got a call from the city treasurer. "Mr. Reed," he said, "are you aware your company submitted 2 conflicting bids for the new library project?" Conflicting bids? 2 proposals, same company, different financial statements. I told him there must be a mistake. He sent me the documents. My name, my signature, forged. Mason had opened a shell account under our business and funneled payments through it. By the time I figured it out, he'd drained $680,000, every cent tied to our last 3 contracts. He even mortgaged the office building we co-owned. The kicker? He'd filed a police report against me 2 days earlier, claiming I was the one laundering money. I'll never forget the night the cops showed up. Ellie was coloring at the kitchen table when the doorbell rang. Blue lights outside. They said, "Mr. Reed, we have a warrant for financial fraud." My wife looked at me like she didn't even know who I was. That's how fast a good man can lose everything. I spent 72 hours in county jail before they released me pending investigation. Mason went on local TV pretending to be the victim. "It's heartbreaking," he said, "when someone you trust betrays the company you built together." The town turned its back on me. Clients canceled contracts. My wife took Ellie and went to her sister's house until things settled down. But here's the thing about truth. It always leaves a paper trail. And I had just found the first piece of mine. The night I got out of county, the air felt different, colder, heavier, like the whole town had exhaled without me. My phone was full of missed calls, but not one of them from my wife. The news had spread faster than wildfire. Local contractor accused of embezzlement. Mason's fake concern plastered across every outlet. I remember walking past the diner where we used to have breakfast every morning. The same people who once waved at me now turned their heads. That's small towns for you. Loyalty here lasts only as long as the gossip cycle. I went home to an empty house. No laughter, no crayons on the floor, no smell of Sunday pancakes. Just silence and a pile of unopened mail on the counter. One envelope stood out, a foreclosure notice. Mason hadn't just stolen money. He'd pushed me into bankruptcy, knowing the company debt was under my name. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, staring at our old company logo on my jacket. Reed and Clarke, built on trust. The irony nearly made me laugh. Around 3 a.m., I poured myself a cup of stale coffee and opened my laptop. If I was going down, I was taking the truth with me. It started small, digging through old email archives, contracts, invoices. I found inconsistencies Mason had brushed off before. Different fonts in signatures, mismatched file metadata, accounts I'd never seen. The deeper I looked, the sicker I felt. He'd been setting me up for years. Small diversions here, fake suppliers there. Slow enough to look like error, but steady enough to bleed me dry. Then I found the break. An email chain between Mason and a developer named Brenton Lowe, the man who managed the city library contract. Mason promised him a cut if he approved the bid under the fake Reed and Clarke account. 15% on $680,000, over $100,000. And Brenton replied, "As long as Daniel never finds out." That one line changed everything. I printed the emails, the bank trail, the invoices, stacked them in order like puzzle pieces. By sunrise, I had a folder thicker than a Bible and one plan forming in my mind. But I couldn't just drop it off at the police station. Mason had friends everywhere, councilmen, investors, even the sheriff's brother owed him money. I needed the truth to explode publicly, something undeniable. Then, fate handed me the perfect opportunity, the Maple Hollow Founders Parade. Every year, the whole town showed up. Floats, banners, news coverage, and this year's Grand Marshal, none other than community hero Mason Clarke. He'd even donated to the event, probably with my money. I smiled for the first time in weeks, because if Mason wanted an audience, I was going to give him one. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing quietly. No drama, no threats, just calculation. I hired a private investigator from Des Moines, a woman named Rita, ex-FBI cyber forensics, sharp as a knife. She verified every piece of data I had, traced the fake accounts, even found offshore links Mason had used to stash his earnings. By the time she was done, I wasn't just innocent. I had proof Mason was guilty of wire fraud, tax evasion, and identity forgery, federal-level crimes. I didn't tell anyone, not even my wife. I wanted her to see it unfold like everyone else. The morning of the parade came bright and loud, the kind of summer day where you can smell popcorn and asphalt in the air. The marching band played down Main Street, kids waved flags, and people lined the sidewalks with their folding chairs and lemonade cups. And there he was, Mason Clarke, standing on the mayor's float, waving like a king. Sunglasses, pressed shirt, that fake grin stretched across his face. I watched him from the crowd, blending in, holding a manila folder in my hand, everything neatly labeled, color-coded, and sealed. Rita was nearby, camera ready, streaming live to half the town on social media. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt calm, too calm. Years of work, friendship, and betrayal condensed into that one walk down Main Street. When the float stopped at the town square for his speech, Mason grabbed the microphone. "Maple Hollow has always been about integrity and brotherhood," he said, voice booming through the speakers. "And I stand proud to represent that spirit." I stepped forward. People turned. The crowd parted slightly, like they could feel something was about to happen. "Mason?" I called out. He looked down. The color drained from his face. "Dan?" I walked up to the float, folder in hand, and said loud enough for the cameras, "You forgot to mention betrayal, Mason. That's part of Maple Hollow, too, isn't it?" He tried to laugh it off. "Buddy, let's not make a scene." "Oh, I think the town deserves one," I said, handing him the folder. "You'll want to read this before the FBI does." Every phone in that square started recording. For a moment, Mason froze, his hand trembling on the folder. And I swear, that second, that exact second, was worth every sleepless night. Because in his eyes, I saw it. Realization. He knew his perfect image was about to collapse in front of everyone. And I wasn't done yet. The silence after I handed Mason that folder was thick enough to choke on. The whole town square froze. The marching band stopped mid-beat. A flag dropped from a kid's hand. Even the announcer's voice cracked through the speakers. Folks, let's keep it civil." Mason tried to smile, that slimy salesman grin he always used when cornered. "Daniel's confused," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "He's had a tough year, lost his business, his mines." "Read it," I interrupted, voice steady. "Out loud." He hesitated. His hand trembled slightly as he opened the first page. The crowd murmured. Every page he flipped through turned his face a little paler. Emails, bank transfers, false invoices. It was all there, his perfect paper trail of greed. Finally, he slammed the folder shut and hissed, "You think this proves anything? You hacked my company files. You'll go to prison for this." I took a slow step forward, close enough that only he could hear me. "I didn't hack anything. Rita did, and she's standing right there with the FBI's cyber evidence chain." I pointed to the crowd where Rita stood, holding up her phone. Live stream still rolling. The comments on the feed were already exploding. "Is this real?" "That's Mason Clarke on stage." "Holy hell, he's shaking." The mayor leaned toward Mason, whispering urgently. Then I saw the exact second Mason realized he couldn't talk his way out of it. His jaw clenched, his eyes darted toward the police tent at the end of the street. "You think this is justice?" he spat quietly. "You're destroying everything. The company, your reputation, your family." "My reputation?" I cut in. "You already destroyed that when you forged my name on the loan papers. I'm just giving you the spotlight you've always wanted." Someone in the crowd shouted, "What's going on?" Another voice yelled, "Is that true, Mason?" The tension snapped. Mason tried to shove past me, but I stepped in front of him, calm, steady, with that same silence I'd learned to live in since the day he ruined me. "The money you stole, the house, the contracts, the offshore accounts, it's all documented. The FBI got the file this morning," I said, loud enough for the cameras. "They're probably watching you wave right now." The police chief's radio crackled. Then, as if the universe wanted perfect timing, a black SUV turned onto Main Street. Federal plates. Mason's face collapsed. He stumbled off the float, muttering, "No, this can't." Two agents stepped out, badges glinting in the sunlight. "Mason Clarke," one said, "you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying federal contracts." The crowd gasped. Phones rose higher. Someone clapped, just once, then more joined in. The applause wasn't loud, just steady, slow, like justice finally breathing after holding its breath too long. As they cuffed him, Mason turned back toward me. "You think this makes you a hero?" "No," I said quietly. "It makes me free." He looked like he wanted to say more, but the agents pushed him into the SUV. The crowd parted again, and just like that, the golden boy of Maple Hollow was gone. I stood there, surrounded by the people who had turned their backs on me. For a long time, nobody spoke. Then Mrs. Henderson, the librarian who'd testified against me months ago, walked up. Her voice shook when she said, "Daniel, I'm sorry." We didn't know I nodded. "You weren't supposed to." He made sure of that. Rita came up beside me, grinning. "You just turned the Maple Hollow Parade into a crime documentary, Dan." I let out a small laugh for the first time in months. Guess I finally built something worth remembering. The next morning, the local paper's headline read, "Town Hero Exposed at Founders Parade. Business Partner Proves Massive Fraud." Below it, a picture of me, mid-step, folder in hand, the crowd watching. They called it poetic justice. I called it closure. But here's the truth I haven't told anyone. It wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about remembering who I was before Mason rewrote my story. That day at the parade, I didn't just hand him evidence. I handed him back every sleepless night, every lost friend, every lie he'd built on my back. And when the sirens faded and the cheers died down, I finally whispered to myself, "You don't get to bury me, Mason. I build things, even from ashes." The night after the parade, the town was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Main Street still smelled like popcorn and summer rain, but the laughter, the usual Friday hum, was gone. People were processing what they'd seen, and for the first time in years, no one was whispering about me. They were whispering about him. I sat on my porch with a cup of black coffee, watching the streetlights flicker. Rita texted, "He's trending. Number sign Maple Hollow fraud." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The world had already seen enough. The next morning, I drove out to the edge of town, to the site where our construction company had once broken ground on the new library. That project had been my dream. Before the lies, before the signatures Mason forged, before everything went sideways. All that remained now were concrete foundations and a crooked sign that still read, "Future Home of Maple Hollow Library." I parked, stepped out, and ran my fingers over the cold steel beam we'd installed on day one. I remembered every nail, every plan, every promise. Mason had stolen the company, but he couldn't steal what I'd built with my own hands. A car slowed behind me. It was the mayor. He got out, awkward, holding a manila folder. "The council met this morning," he said. "We want you back on the project, Daniel. We're naming it after your father." For a second, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. "You sure that's a good idea?" I asked quietly. "Public opinion's been mixed." He smiled. Public opinion changes fast when the truth hits headlines. You didn't just expose a fraud. You reminded this town what integrity looks like. When he left, I stood alone again, wind brushing against my face, sky streaked gold by the setting sun. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the man who lost everything. I felt like the man who rebuilt it. A week later, I visited the jail. Not for closure, for clarity. Mason looked smaller behind the glass. His tan had faded, his hair uneven, the smugness gone. When he saw me, he smiled weakly. "You win, Daniel." I leaned forward. This wasn't about winning. It was about truth. He laughed bitterly. "Truth doesn't pay bills." "No," I said, standing. "But lies eventually do." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I dropped a folded sheet of paper on the counter, a legal notice stamped with the county seal. "I bought your shares from the bankruptcy auction yesterday," I said. 50 cents on the dollar. Clarke and Morrow Construction now belongs entirely to me." His eyes widened. "You, you can't," I smiled. "I already did." He slammed his fist against the glass, shouting something, but I didn't hear it. I walked out to the parking lot, sunlight bouncing off the hood of my old pickup truck. The same truck I'd been driving when he told me I'd never recover. When I reached the road, Rita called, "You okay?" I laughed, a real laugh this time. "Yeah," I said. "For the first time in a long while, I'm more than okay." The town rebuilt faster than anyone expected. The library opened 8 months later, standing tall, all glass and oak, with a brass plaque at the entrance that read, "The Daniel Morrow Public Library, built on truth." People ask me sometimes if I regret making it public, if I could have handled it quietly, without the parade, without the spectacle. Maybe I could have, but some lessons need witnesses. And as I stood at that grand opening, ribbon-cutting scissors in hand, I looked at the crowd, my neighbors, the same people who once believed Mason's lies, and said, "Sometimes justice doesn't arrive in courtrooms. Sometimes it walks right down Main Street." They applauded, cameras flashed, and when the ribbon fell, I felt the last piece of weight lift off my chest, because I didn't just clear my name. I reclaimed my story, and this time no one could rewrite it.